Oh, yeah. Cracking beers. Friday night. School's out for summer. It is vacation time all around. Get out there, take your kids. Don't drown them in the lake, but put them in the lake anyway, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, YouTube, and X. Go to your favorite podcast provider, get us there, like, share, friend, follow. Tell all the people about it. Text us to your friends. That's a good way to do it. So another exciting week of budgetary stuff locally, among other things. An interesting power poll that the Compass guys put out this week. We'll touch on that for a second. I'm sure some other stuff will pop in and out, and we'll talk about it. But for now, we're going to let this intro do its thing, and I'm going to crack my beer, and we're going to get doing the show. Happy birthday.
Hey.
Well, what's happening? What's new in your world?
Oh, not much.
Okay.
Glad we covered that.
Yep. Got to make sure we got cover all the bases.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll start with it. So budget stuff continues. The county budget is as lean as it can get away with. Interesting. There's some interesting convo about the inevitability of a property tax hike for Knox County residents. But you got at least another 2 years before you got to worry about that.
Think it's setting it up for an increase?
I mean, I think the conversation's technically been going on for like a decade, and it's just been a matter of will to not, and
it's
a little bit
of
of
hot potato. Like, I'm not raising taxes. All right, next person.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm not raising taxes.
I mean, Jacobs ran on I'm not raising taxes. Full stop. He just said it over and over and over again, and that was enough,
right.
I guess. And so, I don't know exactly what the. The reality is that apparently, I guess it was back in Ragsdale's administration, they set up some really crazy loans, and they were apparently like 20 years something or other, where the first 10 or 15 years was interest only, and then it went to a huge premium, and that's started to kick in over the last couple of years, which is really kind of hampering it.
That the county loans that the county took out?
Right.
Okay.
The county took out loans, agreeing to pay like the first 15 years they're paying interest only on like a $20 million loan, and so they're paying like $700,000 a year, whatever that is, but they paid zero principal in that period of time,
right,
and then now that timeline has come to an end, and now it's $1 million principal payment or $1.5 million principal payment, and the $600,000 in interest that's still due technically because you still have the bulk of the loan out.
Cool. His budget looked good, right?
I'm sure it did. Sure, that was a fun little. I mean, I'm sure that was a. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure if that was something that was allowed back then that isn't allowed now. I got that was kind of what was inferred, that was not an uncommon practice in municipalities, but a lot of.
I mean, it's not an uncommon practice in loans in general.
But I think a lot of state governments.
It's not a wise move, but
I think some state governments or commissions and stuff like that started passing ordinances saying they weren't allowed to do that for a financing trick anymore because, it's great today.
Makes you look good.
But it really screws up the future.
Right.
And so.
Okay, we wouldn't have to pay. We paid very little into that.
Yeah, and so.
Now you get to pay a bulk of it.
And I think the most interesting thing that's not, that there is that's easy to overlook in the way our budgets work here locally. Slap that microphone.
No, it was a freaking fly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've been pretty open house the last couple of days trying to get the pool open and stuff like that. So, and we have plants in here, so they like to hang out in the plants that we have. So.
This is true.
Stupid plants making them room more. But anyway, the interesting thing about local budgets that I think is an easy thing to overlook is that it's a $1.02 billion budget for Knox County. 700-something million of that is like automatic for Knox County schools. So it's really only a $300 million budget if you take schools out of the equation. And so you have the county, Knox County, of 500,000 people on a $300 million budget, where you have the city of Knoxville with 180, 200,000 people, whatever it is now, with like a $500 million budget. And granted, the city does provide significantly more services than the county does, but it's like that's a lot of and the county only collects property tax in county, not in city or Farragut. So and like 80-something% of all the sales tax collected in Knox County is either in the city or in Farragut. So the county doesn't get those sales taxes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so so I mean, essentially, what's really happening in Knox County is of that $1 point whatever billion plus the $500 million city budget plus the I don't know what Farragut's is, but I think it's like $200 million. It's like a half or a third of what the city's budget is. So anyway, about $2 billion, $1.75 billion is collected in the local sales tax option and or property taxes locally. But
that's what you think is collected?
Oh yeah, at least.
Okay.
It's got to be. But it's got. I mean, just the city and the county's budgets combined to 1.6, 1.7 billion, and so whatever Farragut adds onto that in their collections would be roughly how much. And some of that's property tax. Most of that's sales tax, but some of that's property tax too. So anyway, my point being is that you have the largest square mileage, the largest entity getting the least, really functionally getting the least budget out of any of them. And I think that's something that it's easy to overlook because people don't understand who's who and what government does what locally. Not that they do a good job of making sure we know who does what and where. With all the finger annexing of the city, it's weird. Like, I always joke about how weird it is to where the city limits actually are for the city of Knoxville. Yeah. I don't know. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, like where the actual outline of Farragut for tax purposes is. And so, but again, I guess my point being is that the majority of commerce happens inside the city or the township of Farragut, and all those sales taxes go to their governments, not to the county government. Okay. I just think that's a factor that, not that they're not going to have to raise property tax in the county at some point because they're not going to be able to afford their budgets in the years future. I think it's an interesting subset.
I don't get the point.
What do you mean you don't get the point? It's not excusing anything. I'm just explaining how it kind of works, which I don't think a lot of people realize that's how it works. Because a lot of people are going to look at the county budget and say it's a $1 point whatever billion budget and be like, well, where's all their services for that? It's like, well, it's all on the schools. But they're also like, again, that's like of the 300,000 people that live in Knox County, almost all of their sales tax revenue generated in county goes to the city, doesn't go to the county. And so even though you're a county resident, most of your spend is going into the city government coffers. Me, for example, I spend all my money in the city, but I live in the county.
I mean, I would guess that county residents pay more in property tax than they do in county sales tax.
I mean,
if like you said, if most of the money spent within
right, but that's all the
Knox is,
but that's because all of
limits.
because all of the commerce takes place in the city limits. So yes, most likely because I live here in Rocky Hill. Half of Rocky Hill is in the city, half is not. But all of the mall proper, all the shopping on Morell up there, even Butler and Bailey right across the street here, was in the city limits. So if I go over to the Ace, the Elder's Ace next to Butler and Bailey, and get a bag of dirt, that sales tax goes to the city of Knoxville. I would assume people don't think about it. That's I would guess that most people don't realize that when they start talking budgets.
Gotcha.
And trying to pay attention to budgets.
Sorry, I thought you were going somewhere else with it. I'm like, I don't get where you're going with it.
Okay. No, there was no goal there other than to explain why I think a lot of people don't think about it being as lean a budget as it is. And, how hard it probably technically really is for the county to make revenue.
Yeah, so we got a lot more county roads, county
right.
parks that aren't city parks or whatever.
Right, and it's a lot more expensive. It's per mile. It's probably a little bit more expensive to maintain, even though you get less traffic. You're getting it's more
a lot more like back roads and
twisty turny, trees falling, that kind of stuff that you don't have as much control over. So anyway, as far as I could tell, though, Spangler came in and asked for some more money, and the county said no. And so we've had this arms race. Arms race is a Freudian slip, I guess. We've had this base pay race between the two police departments in town over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So, because like not last year's county budget, but the county budget. No, it was last year's because that's when Spangler was was threatening to sue and that whole thing.
I think it's a big game that just medium cities are playing off of each other. They're like, hey, let's raise it up so then you guys get a raise next year. And they can be like, oh, well, Louisville officers are getting paid this. Well, Cincinnati officers are getting, Atlanta cops are getting paid this.
You're right, but I think it might even be a closer game than that. And maybe Chief Noel and Sheriff Spangler are getting together and being like, you up your budget, then they have to up mine. And then when they up mine, they have to up yours. And we can just have this every year, every other year when budgets come out, we'll get raises.
I don't think the city and county. I think there's still
that's
a little bit of animosity between the two.
But that was Noel's argument when he was asking the city for a higher base pay for his officers was, I can't recruit and retain officers when the county's paying them more than I can.
Yeah.
And then so they got a bump and raise and it passed county, and then Sheriff Spangler was like, I can't recruit and retain officers because they're just going to go work for KPD because it's the same job basically. That they just get paid more over there. Why would they work for me if they can get paid more over there? But that was right here the whole time.
You would think at some point the decision would be just to match.
Well, but I mean, the question is...
You can't really do it exactly, but I mean, within, $1,000 or something, I don't know.
Right, but I mean, the real question is, like, how much should they be getting paid? Forget about what the neighbors paid and who's paying this and that and the other. Like, what is a reasonable salary for just a beat cop, a regular street cop, not a detective or not a 10-year guy that's been here forever or whatever?
Right.
Just a run-of-the-mill. I'm fresh out of the academy, and I know how to do the job, and I've got my licensure and my permitting, and I'm bonded to carry and all the stuff that I have to do to become an officer. I got all that done. What would be a reasonable starting pay? It's the same question, I think, with teachers. That we don't have, like, you ask somebody, some people say, like, a starting salary should be like $65,000 for a teacher. It's like, okay, that justify that, and I might agree with you, but it's like, with all the confounding factors of like cost of living and this, that, and the other that go on, I understand that it's hard to like put a finite thing on it, but it's like, well, then let's do it as like a consumer price index kind of style thing. Like, how many loaves of bread should you be able to afford on a teacher's salary? Don't do it by dollars. Do it by goods. It gives you a better comparison. Because if goods are more expensive here than they are somewhere else, then it's like, well, okay, let me back that up. So it's like...
I mean, outside of like Alaska, the goods should not be that drastically different, or like a super rural area. I'm sorry, that should not be part of the equation for the most part.
It is, but it is significantly... There is a significant... That's what...
Where?
We have argued...
Where is there a big difference?
How many times have we argued cost of living on this show?
A number of times.
Okay, and
I'm asking you a specific question of...
All right, so like a simple one that's easy that I know the answer to, like what's the gallon of gas here right now? Three and a dime?
Something like that?
$3.20 something? It's $5.50 in California right now. Okay. $5.75.
Okay.
That's a drastic difference. That's, so that's just how it goes. I don't know what a loaf of bread is in California right now, but I'll bet you it's more than what we pay for a loaf of bread.
I doubt it's that much.
What's a loaf of bread here? Look it up. Let's do it. Come on. Challenge accepted.
Christ.
I'm trying to...
For what bread?
I don't...
Name brand?
Let's go. Let's do Wonder Bread.
How you going to find it? Just go to like a major grocery store and then look at prices for one here and then one in... Hell, pick San Francisco for all I care. Probably the most expensive city in the U.S. Go ahead.
All right, here you go. Walmart. Walmart's one that we can work with here. All right, Walmart. This is here in Knoxville, $2.92.
To 90078.
I don't want to do all that.
Why?
I just want to put an address in. I don't want to put like my whole...
No, put a zip code. That's all it's asking for.
Required field, required field, required field, required field.
To change your location?
Yeah.
Well, that's fucking stupid.
What was the zip code you wanted?
90078. I want to say that was like Price is Right or something. It's always like stuck in my head.
90078. Burbank Supercenter. What did we just say it was? $2.98?
I think so.
All right, Burbank Supercenter. Excuse me. $2.92. No, we're still in Knoxville. Why didn't it change locations? $292 here. 90078. All right. Burbank, California. Also $292. Impressive. Okay. Bad example. My bad. Then do it by gas price. I don't care. I would say, like, I don't know, like, because the cost of living, like, would you agree that it is...
Would you agree that there's different state taxes that get added on that probably take up more than the actual cost of the price of gas?
It doesn't,
or that have more
matter.
to do with the actual cost of gas?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it's going to automatically differ from state to state because different states put on different...
Let's back up here. How can we put it together a metric to state what a proper salary would be for a starting police officer? That's where we started this, right? Like, what should cops get paid? You know, like we were joking, like it's this arms race between departments on, well, if they have room to pay more, then I can't recruit guys because all my guys go there, and so it's this back and forth. So if we could settle on a reasonable number, what would their reasonable number be? Because my point in all that mess was that just saying a dollar amount is not really a fair function, because I would think that if you're out in...
I would agree that it's going to depend on locality, yes.
Like Cumberland County, you could get away with a smaller salary because it's probably cheaper to live there than it is to live here. We have a lot of officers that commute into Knoxville that live in Anderson and Blount County and Sevier County and stuff like that, and commute in because it's cheap. They can get a better or more house or whatever it is.
So they should get paid more because they're paying more in gas to commute in, right?
No.
No? Okay, never mind.
That wasn't... Well, the moral of that is that it's like, well, if they're having to commute in because they can't afford to live here, and that's a loaded statement. I understand that. It's a question of whether it's a want or not. I kind of go back and forth. I kind of like the idea of having less ties to the community in the sense that you have less likelihood that you're going to lean one way or the other in a situation, and you're going to look more blankly at what's going on because you don't know these people. They're not your neighbors, but at the same time, I kind of like the idea of cops being in the neighborhood and knowing their people that they're dealing with every day.
Right. They're invested in that,
right.
That neighborhood.
And so I go back and forth on that part of it. But if the argument, at least from the officer, is that, well, I live in Blount County because I can get the same house in Blount County for $50,000 less in sale price, which means that's $200-300 less in my mortgage, and I can't afford to live in Knoxville, I have to live down there. Well, then that says, okay, we should be paying more if we want our cops to live in town, if that's one of the things that we want out of it.
Yeah.
Like, if we don't care that they commute, which I don't really care that they, like I said, I'm back and forth on how I feel about whether or not they commute. So if we don't care, then it's like, well, what's the number? Like, how are we going to base a number that makes logical sense to throw this stupid arms race out of the window and say, okay, it's fine. If Louisville's paying $65 to start, then go work for Louisville. We can't stop you. We're just not going to pay $65 a year. That doesn't make sense to us. What number would be a reasonable number? Really, should it be, if that thing is accurate that we saw last week, $185,000 a year is what you need to make as a
family
household
of four,
right? So starting salary is like 45, 44 for KPD or Knox County Sheriff's Office, somewhere in there. Either the spouse is going to have to make $100+ K a year, or they're going to be below whatever that need to live factor is that we were talking about in the map.
Yeah. Tell you about a story I read recently of the FBI having that issue.
Not keeping officers because they couldn't pay them?
Essentially, they're the new recruits, because I guess their starting pay is like 70, 75. And most of them are based, right around D.C.
which is super expensive.
Right.
Apparently,
a lot of those, they have a good bit of experience. They can get paid a lot more going into the private industry or whatever.
Right.
But they're like, hey, I want to be an FBI agent.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I can't afford to live and still be able to get to work.
I think it's two of the top 5 zip codes for average income are in the DC area.
Oh yeah, same. So
yeah.
Or like home, or like price, maybe it's home prices per square foot or something like that. But it's all the lobby, it's all the lobbyists and the lawyers that work around the Capitol, not the actual, not the state reps or anything like that.
Right.
Just the people that work there, if you will.
It's a pretty big metropolitan area.
It is.
Going to Virginia, Maryland.
Yeah, but it's whatever. Like Arlington, Virginia, is one of the top, is like a top 5 income per capita area or something like that.
Is that Fairfax County?
Yeah, I think so. Sounds right.
Oh, I've done that. It's soup.
But so, you know, I don't know. It's a... yeah, so... Again, I don't know. Like, if that 170 is a real number, if we're going to use that as a real accurate number, then, yeah, they should be making like 85, 95 a year. Like, realistically, if you have a spouse, if you and your spouse both work and you need to make 170 a year to raise 2 kids, you know, the cop salary should be at least half that, I would think. I'd say it sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, don't get me wrong, but, you know, if that number, like, you know, and obviously that number's skewed. Knoxville's probably a little bit cheaper because it's probably going to be up over 200 in Nashville. You know, I'd say like the Nashville metro area is probably an average income has to be like $250 a year, and that skews it up. But then the inverse being, you know, you have all these rural counties that you could probably live on $70,000 a year and be okay.
Right.
So, anyway, I don't know. I think 50 sounds like a reasonable number to me. I think 50 sounds functional as starting. I don't know how fast the pay scale goes up, but I mean, I don't know if you're 25 years in and you're making 75 a year, that you're 50 years old, 75 a year. I don't know if they have a pension or not. That's another thing that I figure in, because I mean that's basically a retirement program that normal people don't get. Well, some normal people get, some do. It just depends on the business. You know, and so I don't know how good their healthcare system is as far as the municipal
Should be
health
decent, like
plan.
a state insurance.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how to compare that, because that goes with the teacher's part too. It's like there's other factors in it because they get pensions, because they get tenure, because they get state insurance and stuff like that. That 45 a year as a starting teacher might be equivalent to like 65 a year for a normal person on the street, because you got to pay into a 401k and you got to pay into your insurance more and XYZ. I don't know how it all breaks down with city or county employees.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they get if it's straight up they get health care paid for.
I don't know.
Provided,
it's a good
or
question.
if they're just.
It might be a group plan like the rest of us.
Of a big group plan, right?
It
So
might
they
be
get a lower rate.
Yeah, it might be just a group plan like the rest of us. Jennifer Owens, we need to do a show. I got questions.
I think I work with a guy whose wife works for the city, either the city or the county. And I want to say her insurance. He's like, if I go to the doctor, it's just like $50 like, anytime.
Yeah,
which is cheap compared to most.
Yeah, it's not bad. That's about an average copay, I'd say.
Yeah. But I don't think he has like a deductible he has to meet or anything. It's pretty much like doctor's visit, $50. But
yeah, whatever it is, $50.
Yeah.
So I think that's up to that we probably need to know more about if we're going to really dig into that conversation, what the starting should be. But I don't know. I think 50 sounds reasonable. Like that sounds 45 to 55, somewhere in there sounds like a reasonable number.
Yeah.
You know, especially you're 20 years old. You know, straight out of school or straight out of whatever you were doing before that. Yeah. You know, that's a good starting salary, I think. I don't know anymore. I really don't. Like that 170 thing that we were looking at a couple weeks ago really kind of blew my mind. It does make sense,
I
I
can see
guess.
that being reasonable for, I guess, like more like office staff with KPD, but I would think a beat officer at least 60.
Because you take the risk of getting shot?
Yeah.
Wonder how much
Even though you're not technically required by law, but it's
I wonder how
there's
much
that expectation.
I wonder how much the I wonder how much insurance is for a police department. Not health insurance, but like just like general liability insurance that they have to carry as a.
It's not cheap.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And it's like, well, I wonder how much that eats into their total budget. To where it's like, well, you know, if we didn't have to carry X insurance,
we have to have high risk insurance on literally anyone that goes out and drives a car.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. There's a lot going on there. I need to reach out to Noel again. Anyway, I've been meaning to get a hold of him, do a show with the chief, get him in here with his New Orleans accent, and talking about beignets and whatnots.
Big nets.
The beignets from Café du Monde. Weird French, whatever. I haven't been to New Orleans in a while.
Never been.
It's been a long time. I've only been three times.
Cafe Ole. That just means coffee with cream or with milk. Excuse me.
I don't know. But, yeah, we went for my middle school band went and did a parade. When I was living in Wisconsin, we went down to New Orleans and did a parade.
Weird.
Yeah. And then my UT went when we played LSU. We stayed in New Orleans one year. And then the Mrs. father used to live in Baton Rouge, and we went down there once. And while we were down in Baton Rouge, we went down to New Orleans. That's when I drank a hand grenade at like 11:30 in the morning on Bourbon Street. Because I could. Didn't want it. It wasn't good. It wasn't really fun. I just did it because I could walk down the street drinking my hand grenade.
Just cause.
Just because. You got to do. When in Rome, they say. And,
Yeah.
But it's fun.
So I didn't really think to do in Vegas. It was like walk around on the street with the drink.
With a drink.
I think it's like most of the drinks you can buy on the street were like $15 and like some weird like souvenir cup bullshit.
Yeah. See, I've never been to Vegas, so you got me on that one. I haven't
Not
been
missing too much.
I haven't been much. I haven't been west. I haven't been much west of the Mississippi. Period. Minneapolis a couple times when I lived up there for hockey tournaments and stuff like that. Denver, and I've been to Colorado a handful of times. We stopped in San Francisco for about 30 minutes on our flight to Hawaii. And so I say I've been to San Francisco once.
Yeah.
But I was literally like, changed terminals in the airport, and that was it.
I could say I've been to Newark.
Yeah.
They'd walk outside to smoke a cigarette. Automatically heard like horns honking and shit. I'm like, yep, I'm close to New York.
This is New York. We did it. Yay.
Newark.
Oh, yeah, here across the river, Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't recount my one trip to the Big Apple. It was not a good time.
I got no desire, really.
I don't really either. Like I got enough that once. We went to Times Square. We went to the giant M&M store. Took some pictures. I mean, where the wedding that we went to was amazing. It was at Mark Twain's daughter's house.
That's cool.
And like big mansion just north of the city. Gorgeous mansion, like just a beautiful setup. Like, it's like, I mean, I guess it's comparable, like the Bleak House here, and some of the ones like right down there on the river. Some of those old houses that we have down there that are venues and do weddings and stuff all the time in them.
Is the Bleak one? Is that the white one right next to like the Calvary Church that I think was like a hospital at some point
Maybe
during the Civil War?
it's right there on that the last block before you get to campus.
Yeah.
Now, AC got married in that house. That's the very last one.
Right. Well, that's not the very last, but yeah, next to last.
That was the very last. The one that there's what is it next to it? It's a UT facility next to it.
Right.
But it's not a house. It's like a building. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
There might be one more house. But it was like one of those houses. Mark Twain's daughter's house is like one of those houses that had been. It's an old house, obviously, but then it had been retrofitted into a venue. That's all they did was events there.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be an outside wedding. It rained. So, like, oh, it's weird. Have you ever been to a wedding where AC's wedding, you were my plus one. And so you were hanging out, but the people you were with are doing the rehearsals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the missus was in the wedding, and I was just there. So I was there like 4 hours early because they were doing the rehearsal right before the wedding, and because of all the different timings of everybody flying into New York and stuff like that. So I was there just hanging out, just sitting over in the corner while all this stuff's going on. And it was kind of neat because I got to watch the staff reset the wedding. Like, because they like when we got there, all the chairs were outside, the altar was outside, everything was set up outside. And then the storm starts rolling in, and whoever the boss was like, "Hey, we got to fix this." They go out there, they fold up all the chairs, they stack them up, slide them over in this thing, they roll the thing inside. Two guys carry the altar inside. They just pulled the whole outside wedding into the ballroom of this house in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, all right, there we go. That's it. We're doing the thing. Cool. That was that. So, yeah, that was my trip to New York. That was the good part of it, at least.
Nice.
But
I've heard they're trying to change. I don't know if they're trying to make some different rules, but I guess trying to decrease the congestion on Times Square. Just because it is just like the biggest kind of conglomeration of people, and everyone's like, "Hey, you got to go to Times Square."
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't get it. Like I did it. I subjected myself to the touristy thing to do while you're there.
Right.
And I guess I get it, but I just don't get it either. I don't know. It's just not my jam.
Right.
Like, I don't.
It's like, oh, there's an M&M store. Oh, there's the Apple store.
We did go by the. I guess it's one of the federal courthouses. We walked by one of the federal courthouses down there, and it's the one that they shoot a bunch of scenes from Law and Order in.
Really?
Yeah, that was kind of my highlight. It's like, hey, that's the Law and Order courthouse. Yeah. I don't think it's the actual city of
like
New York.
75 steps.
Yeah, it's not the city of New York court. Like, it's not actually New York City's courthouse that they film on. It's this federal one, or something like that. It was, I don't know. It was neat. It was kind of fun. The UT grad students are unionizing. It's an interesting little. They're basically, they don't get paid enough, which is kind of interesting. If you take it out, if you kind of back out a little bit and look at it from like the 1,000-foot view, it's like, well, you know, these are the people we were talking about. We talked about this before. It's like, you know, these are the kids adults, whatever, that are working. They teach classes for teachers. They're teaching assistants, or they're research assistants, and they're in there doing the lab work for a study or whatever it is. They're the paid employees, and all they get their tuition, which is not nothing, and they get a stipend that helps pay their bills, but like it's not much. Right. It's like 30. It's like I think they said like 30 a year, 30 grand a year.
Yeah,
you know, which, you know, if you were paying for school, that'd be a lot, or that'd be a very little bit amount of money. But like having your school tended to, but still, just a place to live for 30 grand a year, let alone eat, get to and from your home to work, school, stuff like that. That's not a lot of money to function off of. But like you go back a little bit, it's like, you know, this was the argument that the football players were making a couple of years back too. It's like, well, we don't even get a stipend. You know, we get food vouchers or whatever, so we can go eat whenever we want in the cafeterias, and our books and all our stuff's paid for their scholarship and stuff like that. But we have to live in the dorms. You know, we don't. They didn't get. They don't get. They don't even get a stipend. The football players do.
Oh, they should get a stipend too.
I don't know. I'm just saying that was the argument. It's like, you know, you're making a bunch of money off of us.
Okay, so they get to go to school. The ones with scholarships get to go to school for free, get their books for free, get free food. Okay, that puts them like at least twice ahead as most students. So, what's their complaint?
Well, their complaint is that we make the university a ton of money, whereas those regular students that you referenced there, they don't bring any money in, at least while they're there. They might donate back when they get out, but so might I if I go on and have.
Because the athletes donate a lot of money back?
Some of them do. I know Peyton does.
Okay, so we got one.
I'm sure that there is a good there's a goodly sum of former UT athletes that donate back to the school.
We've had a few that have gone kind of far enough to like make enough money to think about sending some checks back. But
I know we've had a lot of UT athletes go on and have some pretty good solid careers.
Okay. I don't know.
Whether they give their money back or not, you know, whether they send their money back. I mean, the Lady Vols basketball team, they like, you know, at least the Pat Summitt era ones, they had tons that went pro.
I would venture to guess, and I mean they are, you know, definitely outnumbered as far as students compared to general students. But I would say those general students, once they graduate, donate a lot more money back than football players or sports players on average.
I could see the logic in your assumption, but I'm gonna just say I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Because I would think that you'll have a Manning or whatever that's doing multi-million-dollar donations a year. That how many, you know, normal professionals that got a degree and are just donating, you know, $100, $200 a year back to the school.
Right.
You know. But then you have, you have like a Haslam or one of them that are donating millions and millions of dollars a year. And I don't know if
some of those occasions they can donate directly to a particular program, correct? Like the Haslams, they could just dump all their money into the Haslam Business School.
I don't know. I think it's I don't know.
I'm assuming the university is going to be like, well, no, you give us money and we get to decide how we're going to use that money.
Well, I mean, you give us that money, we're going to name a building or something after you, and that's what they want. It's the legacy purchases that they do.
Yeah, not
But
many
so-
people are donating that much to get that much.
Anyway, I don't know if they're gonna. They didn't like officially like formally unionize, but apparently it's not uncommon. There are actual like formal unions of grad assistants at other schools.
Yeah.
Store.
But they basically did a group letter to Donnie Plowman and said, "Hey, you need to give us more money."
Think you're gonna want
There was no direct threat, but it's at least implied, I would think.
Yeah, there's definitely some that are literally teaching classes and doing not too dissimilar to what a paid teacher would be doing.
Right.
As far as they're teaching classes, they're grading papers, they're writing lesson plans to teach a whole semester or whatever.
Right.
But
But
I think for some of those grad degrees, like it's required that you teach, so many hours or whatever.
you get banana
Yeah.
boats by
Yeah, I don't know what the. I'd be curious what exactly all of that entails. And I mean, I don't know. I don't like it. To be honest, the idea in principle kind of seems weird to me in the first place. Like what? Like it's an unpaid internship. Like I mean, let's just go just a research assistant. Like you could pay somebody $10, $15, $20, $25 an hour, depending on how technical the research is, to do the actual just the. Just like a political like a political research thing that there's the new what is it called, the Baker Center at UT. The Baker Center wants to do a research project on political political leanings and reasonings for East Tennessee, and so they go and they send out these grad assistants and volunteers to take all these surveys and tally all this stuff up. If anybody else wanted to do that, like Pew and all these other research centers, they're paying people to do the work. Why does it, just because it's attached to university, they don't need to pay the people to do the work? It seems kind of weird to me. Or even just the teaching assistant part of it. It's like, you're a fucking teacher. Like you have even the K through 12 does it too, where they have that 1 year where you're a teaching assistant in a whatever school, and that's one of your classes essentially,
Right.
is to go teach at a high school. And it's like, well,
Which I thought somebody said that's unpaid as well.
right, which I think that's screwy. It's like, I don't know.
But apparently that's one of the only ways you can get into a certain county, basically.
Right, that's your way to get your first. That's your first interview with that school system. But it's okay. So here's a question. Okay, so Max's dad, when I was full time, and he used to come in and hang out there when we first opened a lot. He was actually a union rep in Iowa when they lived up there. That was his job. He worked for the union, not for the company or the companies that his union his union represented the employees for. He was the union guy. And so I had a lot of arguments with him because he is a very right wing dude. And it's like, this doesn't make sense, man. Like, I'm really confused. You're very right leaning, yet you were the man for a union. Like, it just doesn't, like, he told a great story about how the company fired a guy for stealing stuff, and he's like, you can't fire him. He's on contract. You can't fire him, and you need to help him because it's a problem that he has. It's not his fault. It's a sickness or something like that. Was kind of the argument that he made to. So I guess he threatened to strike. They threatened to strike over something like that. Like, I don't know what the whole story was really long and convoluted, but basically the company was like, okay, fine. And so they sent him to like some sort of like Kleptos Anonymous class and let him keep working. And then they caught him stealing again, and they fired him again. He's like, no, you got to send him back to class again. They're like, no, he's fired this time. And so they went on strike, and then ended up getting like 20 other people fired. It was a crazy ass story. Maybe not the best union boss ever. It was Max's dad. Anyway, I tell that whole story to go back to like one of the things I remember him saying all the time, and it was in a very condescending manner. It's like, and again, this is one of his not right-leaning things that was interesting and why he was very confusing to me. But it was basically, the big business and stuff has basically infiltrated our education system, and what they're doing is they're getting you to pay for the training to work for them, so they don't have to pay to train you anymore. They want you to pay for your own training at a college, a university, a tech school, or whatever, so that they don't have to train you. Like, he's like, back when I started working back in, like the 60s or whatever it was for him, 60s or 70s, when I had my first job or whatever, it's like I went in and all the requirements were, will you show up, will you do the work? It wasn't, can you do the work? They put me to work and taught me how to do it. and they don't do that. Like that was his take, at least, is that companies don't do that anymore. They don't teach you how to do the job. They expect you to know how to do the job, and they expect the schools to teach it for you. Which this rolls back into a lot of stuff for me.
That happens in some industries, but it's not that common. I mean, I would say there's probably some plumbing and electrical companies that if you started on, they would, I don't know if they necessarily cover for classes, but they may, depending on how much they liked you and I guess what kind of experience that you did have, they may pay for you to go take, to get well, I guess there's only so much you can do. You got to be a licensed, plumber or a licensed electrician to do certain things.
Yeah.
So I could see them paid training in doing that.
Well, but it's just like, we don't do apprenticeships really much anymore.
Right.
But electrical does. But I think you're right in some of the. No, I don't think so. I mean that's why there's such a push for trade schools now, is because, we have this big. I'd be interested to try it or to test the theory on it. But there's all this talk about how we're like, significantly short on trade workers, like plumbers, electricians, HVAC, welding, all that kind of stuff. And I would be curious how many firms that do the work would hire somebody without experience. Would just hire somebody willing to teach them to do it on the job.
All right.
Because I don't know what the answer is, because it's like, well, I don't know that,
I'd say depending on the company and depending on the demand,
right,
they may be more inclined to do an apprenticeship.
Because that seems to me to be the market. That's the market solution.
All right.
I need people to know how to do this job. Nobody knows how to do this job. All right, I need people that will show up, and I'll teach you how to do this job.
Right.
That seems like the market solution to me. But I think part of the problem with that, and this is where some of my anti-statism will come back in, is I think part of that is stuff like you were talking about, where you have to have a state certification or something like that to do certain work. And so it's like, well, if you got to get the state certification anyway, why would I take that burden on as the employer to teach you how to do it, and then, but not really not really allowed to let you do a lot of the work because you're not certified yet?
I wonder if realtors do that. Because I think there's a lot of people that probably get a job as a realtor, but haven't gone through realtor school or whatever to get their licensure and whatnot.
Yeah, that's one I don't like. It's another one I don't quite
It's not
understand.
really just a straight up sales job, but it's in the mode of sales.
Well, they got a real.
So they hire you, and they have paid training. They're like, hey, we run our own class, or we'll pay for you to go to this class.
Yeah, and you have yeah, and I mean, I guess I could theoretically get why the state certification to me is like, well, there's a lot of legal that goes into real estate.
Bars and restaurants will, if it's a big enough place, they may pay to have someone come in and teach a group of people to get ABCs.
We've got it.
Right.
There are third parties that do it, or you could do it at KPD or whatever. But
right.
I don't pay for it, because it's yours. That was always
right.
ours.
That's what I'm saying. But there are some
right.
restaurants and bars that will do that.
I think if
gas station did it for me.
Yeah, I never every job. Well, I guess mine did. That's my. I never took it when I was there.
I think I was there long enough to where they pretty much had to.
Yeah,
I think I was at the point where
I should have too. Back then it was 30. It was the longest it's ever been is 90 days from hire.
Ah, okay.
It's gone down to 60 now, but 90 days are like, even if it was 90 days of hire, I worked there for longer than 3 months.
Yeah.
So I should have taken it or whatever, but I don't know. That's another weirdism, but. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's something that again, it goes into the whole education conversation we've had 1,000 times, and I think that's kind of why I'm dancing around, and I don't have a firm thought on it yet per se. But I think that's part of. I think he was right. I think Max's dad was right, in that whether it was intentionally on the business's part or whether it was schools that were trying to use a partnership with a business as a way to help attract students. So it's like, hey, we partnered with IBM, and IBM's coming down and helping this teach this computer electronics and software engineering program because you pay us, we teach you how to do it, and then IBM hires you when you're out of here. And they use that it could have been a natural result over time of a way to incentivize students to come to your school instead of another school.
As far as partnerships with a business in a school?
Yeah, that's. I mean, they like lots. There's lots of companies. Like UT's got a whole roster of companies. I'd have to go through.
Right.
You have to look at it, but it's like like you'd have like a company like. Oh, I don't know. I mean, you'd have a company like Coca-Cola would do a partnership with the University of Tennessee, and what Coke would do is they would send maybe some of their logistics managers in, and their logistics like team leads and stuff like that in to go and sit down with some of the faculty to help build the program on logistics, because this is the cutting edge. Because Coca-Cola, that's one of the things that they did well, is how to get the consistency of their product across the land. That's a Coke signature move. And so Coke did that well, and so UT and Coke partnered up. I don't know if this is true or not, but UT and Coke partner up, and Coke sends some of the executives from Coca-Cola in to sit down with faculty, and they design parts of their program using the model that Coca-Cola had perfected. Now, they're not saying that it's not that we're teaching you how to work for Coke, but if you do go work for Coke after this is the model that we're teaching you.
Yeah.
Whether you take this and you go work for somebody else, and you might, and again, it's a bonus for the student, because it's like, well, I can get a job with Coca-Cola, or I could get a job getting out of school with a different company that's trying to compete in that space, and I have knowledge that can help them do that thing to get better at that particular subset of their business, because I learned it from Coca-Cola at my school. Yeah. So again, I don't know what the origin story is.
I would say overall, that doesn't seem to make sense for me. I mean, I think most general careers, architect. I mean, I don't think anyone gets out of high school would expect to go to an architecture firm and that firm to pay for them to go to school. I don't think it's this whole crazy thing. It's like, oh, well, eventually they just kind of did some shit behind the scenes to encourage you to go get a degree to get a job as an architect. No, that's just the way it always was. You wouldn't get your architecture degree before you became an architect, that any architecture firm hired you. Same with journalism. I mean, journalism, you may be able to get away with not quite
nowadays you can
having a bachelor's in journalism or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'd say for the most part, got to have that basic level of education for that field before you get hired. And I don't see his point kind of holding as much water, at least most of the professions I can think of.
I don't know.
I mean, he may be focused specifically on trades, and that I could maybe kind of see. But
I don't know what companies he was union rep with,
right,
to say exactly. But I don't think so. I think it is I won't say that. That's not fair. I would say that it's a fairly recent phenomenon in the history of employing people, that somebody other than the employer did the training. I would think. I mean, going back, other than apprenticeships and stuff like that, I think the apprenticeship is just a different way that the employee is doing the employer is doing the training. I would think it's been, I guess there's some subsets where you have these really old, William and Mary's and Harvards that have been around for 100, 200 years. But it's like, yeah, I'd say it's under 100 years old as a normal thing.
Yeah, UT's what, 200? 150?
Yeah,
I think they just had their 150th.
But it's an ag school.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they're teaching people how to farm. They're not teaching people how to employ farmers. Or rephrase that. They're teaching people how to run a farm.
They were in agricultural school up to 50 years ago or something? What?
I don't know when some of the shifts started happening, but I mean, I would say the first significant period a lot of it was.
You think they focused on agriculture up until 50 years ago?
I don't know the history. I would have to look at the history of the University of Tennessee, and when they started doing what we would consider liberal arts would be one of the when they added the liberal arts college. I would say that's probably less than 100, maybe more than 50, but not more than 100 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
I'm sure they had basic science degrees, English degrees, math degrees, even in the early times. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't think they were a podunk school up until not too long in the recent past.
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe I have a weird image of old schools in the olden days, One-room schoolhouses. What all it was aerosol.
Look at
Aerosol?
Airs.
the currency.
Aerosol.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anyway, yeah. So, anyway, grad assistants are asking for more money. That was a long-winded discussion on that. Oh, I heard an interesting thing on in the NCAA football. If you want to talk football for a minute,
I mean, I can listen to you talk on football. I won't have much response on football.
I was so this season is when the new playoff format is
It's in one of the 8 rooms. Or how
the new playoff format kicks in, and it's going to go to like a 6 or an 8 team.
For college?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's expanding the whatever it is, and so potentially what's going to happen? It's a 6 thing. It's 6. It's 6. It's 6. I believe it's 6 teams from the 4 it has been. So what's going to happen is that your 1 and 2 seeds are going to get a first round bye, and that's how they're going to get it up to 6 teams without adding more weeks and stuff like that. And so essentially, the question at play that the guys are discussing on this show was, will the SEC championship become pointless once this in the next couple of years when this as this the playoff system is, because historically the way the SEC has worked is, you have an East and a West team that are arguably both top 4 teams, and so if you go up to 6, you're going to have the winner and the loser of the SEC championship going into the tournament. So do you play really hard in the SEC championship so that you can have a week off and get that and get that, win that 1 or 2 seed to get the bye week, or do you do like the last week of pro football when you sit all your starters to rest them for a week, because you're only going to get 1 week off either way. You get a guaranteed week off by resting them for the SEC championship, where you don't if you put the potential of playing really hard and injuries and stuff like that, and may win the game and may get a bye. And so the argument is that the SEC championship is going to start to suck. And I thought it was an interesting take, because I could see it. It makes sense. It makes total sense strategically if you're the coaches.
I mean, like you said, a lot of teams already do it in other sports.
Yeah, and
there's always that kind of running joke in many things when it's leading up to playoffs or right before some big game. It's like, are they going to play the starters? That was a whole big thing with Messi. I think it was just like friendlies or something where Miami FC or whatever, I think, was doing like a traveling tour.
Yeah.
But I want to say it was an Asian country. They got really pissed off. They're like, you guys said you were coming, but Messi didn't play. Like, what the fuck?
Right. Did you really expect him to come? Well, yeah, that's the only reason we're paying you guys $1 million to come.
Right. We paid to the Messi, not the team.
Yeah, that's all we really wanted. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, friendlies are a little bit different, but yeah, I agree. And it apparently there's a rumor that the Vols baseball team just kind of threw their SEC tournament. They weren't really trying really hard in the SEC tournament for the same kind of thing.
All right.
Because what you really want is to play the College World Series, and if you win the SEC regular season, you're going to the College World Series anyway. And so you could play in the tournament and do okay in the tournament, or even win the SEC tournament. It's not really going to change much for you, except that you're playing all your guys and especially wearing out your pitchers.
Right.
Where you can give everybody a little bit of a rest and go out in the first round of the SEC tournament and take a week and a half off and then come back to the college tournament and go get after it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not even just like with playoffs in mind, but there's always talk of an NHL as far as get towards the end of the season, there's almost kind of like that race to the bottom. Like, as you go out last, or if you're the bottom team, in that at the end of the year, you typically get first round pick.
Right. So that's one of the few things I like about the NBA is it's statistically likely that the worse you are, the better your draft picks. But like NFL, I think hockey is the same way. But like NFL, at least, it is exactly inverse. So you take you take everybody's records and you go through all the complicated tiebreakers. The worst team in the league gets the first pick, the second worst team, and so on. So if you win the Super Bowl, you get the last pick in the draft.
Right.
That's just the way it is. And so yeah, you get late season and you have this team that's only won one game, and it's like, well, there's no reason to start winning games now. We want that first overall draft pick, and that happens all the time in the NFL. Where in basketball they do a lottery. And and it's like it's like an old school lottery ball, like it used to be at least. Like it's one of those ball machines, so they have all the ping pong balls in it with the team logos, and you get the worse you do, the more balls you get in the machine. But even if you win the NBA championship, you have one ball in the machine.
I think NHL started doing something like that, but I think they do it just for like the bottom 4.
Maybe that's what. Maybe the NBA does something similar. Because there's one year, like in the '80s or early '90s, where like one of the best teams in the league ended up pulling the lottery pick and getting like the first or second overall pick after having a banner season.
Right.
And although it was fair, air quotes, people were really upset. It's like, how are we supposed to compete? But basketball is weird too because they don't have the salary cap rules and stuff like that that some of the other sports do.
Huh.
And so you can have like, well, basketball has what they call a luxury tax. And so they have a salary cap, but if you break the salary cap,
you just pay a little extra fine.
Right, you pay a fine to the NBA, and it's like, well, okay, I can demolish the salary cap and pay a few $1 million to the NBA in my fines, but I now have it
kick ass so bad, like here's a little bit of money, and we'll
right.
rain some money down on you. Right,
and all the while you're winning games and selling more jerseys and selling tickets and selling everything else, and so it works out, and so. That's why basketball tends to have major market. It's always major market teams. Like you always have. It's always your Lakers or, San Antonio had their run there for a minute, but it was like the Lakers and the Bulls. Their big market teams always seem to be on the top of the heap.
Yeah. I think I talked about it on here. I want to say it was like a big international tournament, but it was badminton, however different people say it. But I want to say both teams ended up getting kicked out. It was national teams. But both teams were trying to lose. Because it was one of those, they basically wanted to go into the next round as the lower seed. So they didn't have to play as high of a seed of team in the next round.
Well, that's backwards.
But it was...
Most tournaments, at least, that's backwards. The lowest seed plays the highest seed. So if you lose, you're going to play theoretically the better team.
However they had it. I guess between the two of them...
They would both prefer to play the... better team, whatever, the higher ranked, whatever. They had a preference of who they were going to play next.
They knew what bracket they would go into if they won that game, but it was both sides literally trying to lose. And these were like professionals, and I wish I could find. I keep meaning to look for the damn video of it, because apparently they just look like amateurs. Like, I missed it again. Oh shoot! And I want to say, I think both of them ended up getting kicked out of the tournament because it was just blatantly obvious that both teams were trying to lose. I think they both just got kicked out for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Good for badminton international organizers to stick it to them like that. Oh, people. But anyway,
I mean, into the basically people trying to lose just to.
So be on the lookout for that conversation when football season really gets rolling, because I think it's likely. It makes total sense to me. Like it makes total sense that if Tennessee wins the East and goes to the SEC championship against Bama, and Bama's the 1 seed overall anyway, it doesn't really matter. So you're gonna play. You're gonna be at least the top 6, so you're gonna make the tournament. Take the bye week at the SEC championship. Play your games, but I don't know. The other side too, though, is football's. I got to see what the schedule looks like now that I'm thinking about that, because regular SEC championship is the week after the regular season ends, but then at least the current format, the first round of the NCAA or the college football playoff was like Christmas week, and so that's like there's already 2 or 3 weeks between that time, so you don't want to take too much time off on purpose. I don't know. Now that I think about that part, it rejiggers my thought process. No matter.
I think I saw the NCAA settled on a lawsuit, but I want to say it was like NIL deals for former players.
Say again?
I think I only saw like the headline of it. I want to say the NCAA, I guess, was involved in a lawsuit. I think it had to do with NIL deals.
Tennessee and
with
Penn State were suing the NCAA over NIL stuff, and that got settled.
No, but this is over former players. This isn't like upcoming NIL deals.
I still don't quite understand what the current one that it just got settled was over either. But
did it get settled?
Yeah, the settlement came out this week, I think. But this was UT was suing, and it was basically, I think that one was about like the NCAA was going to penalize for some of the recruitment violations involving NIL deals. Oh yeah, that's right. That's what it was. It was the there's a company here in Knoxville that's like basically a booster club for where they get a bunch of donors and potential advertisers that want to pay student athletes.
Vol Club, I think.
Something like that. And they went out and they were making offers to kids if, wink wink, they came and played here. And that is technically illegal on the rules. You can't offer them. You can't offer it to them unless, like, you can offer it to them, but it doesn't have. You can't put it being dependent on whether they come play here or not. Which the NCAA is trying to get it so that you don't make the offer until they actually sign with that school, because they don't want, Ted Russell Ford dropping a $5 million check on an athlete, and that's why the athlete comes here. But that's what the current one was. I don't think it's not the one you're referencing. I don't know that I'd heard about this one at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find. Let's see here. Yeah, I want to say it had to do with basically compensating former players. I'm assuming in recent history, it was like, hey, you guys just passed this, allowable NIL deals. Like, I was there 3 years ago when the school was profiting, blah 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 blah. And
right, I didn't get anything. But
if now you're saying it's okay for us to make money, I want to make money.
I want to make the money I should have made while I was there.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think that's a valid argument, but you could try. I think I'll be interested to see if over the next, decade or so, we get a college athletics players union. Like, you have the NFLPA, you have the NHLPA, you have all these, all your professional sports are all union. All the players are unionized. Baseball, everybody does it. The pros. Why wouldn't we start doing it in college now that money's involved? But another one too. Apparently, the NCAA has just ruled that schools are allowed to start directly paying players too.
Yeah,
which I think's about damn time. Like, that should have been the first step, not the second.
Let's see. This is a story from yesterday. NCAA league backs $2.8 billion setting stage for current former athletes to be paid.
Current former athletes.
10, blah, blah, blah. Agreed to pay settlement terms. Important step. Terms were not disclosed, though. I don't know. I would still like to lean towards, I guess, the NCAA's initial thing of saying that college sports are supposed to be a little more amateur. I understand when you start bringing a lot of money into it. It's like, we make all this money. It's like, well, you wouldn't have been had we not started marketing it and everything.
Nah, yeah, they're always doing their whatever.
It wasn't a big thing before. It was, something that towns went to go watch, the local college play.
I don't know
if they weren't these like merchandising juggernauts that they are now.
I don't know if I agree with that. I certainly think it's gotten more expensive and bigger over time, for sure, no doubt. But
especially when you start looking at fucking TV rights and shit.
Yeah. But that's part of the evolution of the TVs and stuff, the way TV works and stuff like that too. I think, but that's one of those things that's interesting to me. It's like, I don't know, like, the Texas did it. They had the Longhorn Network that they spun off their own. And so any games that they played that basically weren't on any of the major whatever, that you could buy a package, and it was like, okay, well, we're not splitting a tenth of a Big 12 package, or a 12th, I guess, of a Big 12 package with the 12 other schools. We get 100% of the revenues from this. I don't understand why more schools aren't messing around with stuff like that. Just skip the middleman and be like, okay, let's go tap our College of Video and Production to come do the games, and we could sell a subscription, and anybody anywhere can stream our games for a fee. It's like, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions of fans, like how many UT fans are around the world, like they're all over the place. People want to watch their games, but they live in, wherever, and so they only get to watch them when they're on a certain channel that they actually have in their local place.
That's why most contracts, aren't yearly contracts. It's something you're like, hey, for the next 5 years, you're only going to be shown on this network.
Right, but like if I were UT, I'd be like, why can't we make a UT network? And we show baseball, basketball, football, soccer, hockey. We show everything we could show. And for $150 a year, $120 a year, $10 a month, you can have that as a streaming service. And you could stream all the games all the time, anywhere. You can get replays of it and stuff like that. They could sell their own commercials inside of it, and they would sell a lot of them for a lot of money. Not to mention the subscriptions to it, and it's all theirs. They don't have to share it with anybody. Or they have to split it with the opponent.
Such a wide viewership, if you then would have to have extra servers to deal with that kind of traffic.
I mean, they can figure it out. It's doable. I would say, why not? I'd be I think in the world we live in now, why not?
Right.
I would really,
like you said, they have a communications department.
Yeah, I would think that you could put something together and get hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people to pay the $100 a year subscription, and then just sell your own ads and do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And make as much, if not more, than you're getting for your cut from. Well, actually, UT can't because there's a profit sharing rule inside the SEC. So UT couldn't do it in and of their own right because they'd have to give portions of that over. But even that, the SEC network separate from ESPN would be its own move to do that. Just be like.
Right. But I mean, some people watch ESPN to get those, color commentators and to have the different analysts that are doing the pregame and.
Yeah, and you can still get that too if you want. You just have to get ESPN.
Then you've got a 19-year-old that's out there. Kind of like,
no
stats.
You have Bill.
Yards.
You got the.
You're not going to have the same level of. I hate to call it journalism, but sports journalism.
Yeah, no, but I mean the radio guys are professional, paid by the University of Tennessee that do the radio. They could I can't. He just retired. The one guy.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, that's someone that's been doing it for decades.
Yeah, but I mean,
was like the voice of the Vols or whatever.
And they're going to hire somebody to replace him, and
right.
And he's going to be a professional, and he's going to know how to do it. He's going to be as good as the Bill Williams. No, that was the Channel 10 anchor.
Right.
Josh Ward. No, that's one of the radio show guys. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be. That doesn't have to be a student. None of them have to be students per se. I think it'd be paid employees that work for the UT TV channel, for lack of a better word. UT Sports TV channel. And
so you got teachers or students.
Or you have just paid employees. That's what they do. They don't have to be a teacher or a student to work for the university.
They're only hired to be, I guess it could be a contract consultant.
Yeah. There's no rule about the university can't hire a specialist to do a particular job for them.
Right.
It's like, I would think you may want to roll that into using that in your journalism communications classwork and stuff like that, and use some of those students as part of your labor corps, but also as an educational on the ground, get your hands dirty training on how to operate. But it's very doable, and it's not particularly expensive.
I don't know if you've seen, but I've seen some videos of different colleges, like news networks, and it's like, is this?
I could do better than that here in my basement.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but or at least not personally. I'm like, this kind of looks like what I remember my high schoolers, which we got to remember these people are only 3 years removed or whatever from doing
or
that
less,
same thing. Right.
I think
pretty much similar production quality. But I mean, these are people that are in communications, programs.
But you get better by playing with it, and again,
that's what I'm saying. For it to be profitable, I don't know if people are going to stick around for that long with that production quality. That's why most people will watch, the major networks that are covering college.
I think I get what you're saying, but I disagree. I think the UT Athletics department could absolutely afford a top tier production team, hired, paid for, full-time employees that do all the sports, and would absolutely make more.
But you think they would make more?
They would make more than it would cost them to do it by far. But because again, you got the subscription part, which as an exclusive that's just dollar bills that's getting handed to you, but you still sell ads. You know, I mean, how much? Like, we looked at it a couple of years ago, and it was a lot. Like, you get like a 30-second radio ad on IMZ, right? A 30-second radio ad, a block of them right now, just in the middle of the summer or whatever. You know, like $700 a month, and you're going to get like 20 30-second ads a month or something like that. Like, they spread them out over through the different time places, and like, you know, the drive times are the more expensive times, and you get to place your ads where you want to place them and all that kind of shit. Right. But I think during UT broadcasts, that same 30-second ad for just one of them during a broadcast is like $500 by just one, where you're paying, you know, $1,000 for a month with 20 or 30 through that month normally. But on game days during broadcasts, they're significantly more expensive. And UT would be selling those. The UT Athletics Department would be selling those directly instead of through the third party. Because WIMZ pays the University of Tennessee a percentage or a fixed rate annually to be the exclusive radio broadcast for UT football. But if UT did it themselves, they would make all that money themselves. They would have to pay people to do it, but they would pay less to pay people to do it than the difference would be less than how much that IMZ is probably paying them.
Okay, sure.
Would be my guess. I would think.
I don't know.
I said that really funky too. Didn't really help my explanation.
Yeah, I kind of got lost in that last part of it. Yeah, sure. Smile and wave. Smile and
how much they would collect in selling ads themselves, versus minus how much they pay to put it all together. That difference would be greater than how much IMZ pays them for a broadcast. That's.
I mean, I guess it's all going to depend on. I would think realistically, it's all going to depend on how well they start out, because to sell that ad space, you've got to prove to that customer basically that you're going to have this many eyeballs, this many ears, listening and watching to this.
Yeah, I mean that's always the problem with radio anyway. But
right.
I don't
well, it's not the problem with radio because you've already got those numbers.
Yeah,
this being a new thing, starting from the ground up.
Yeah, but if it's a subscription model, you say we have 3 million people that subscribe to our app to watch and listen to games on. So if you know, and they could quickly figure those numbers out. Obviously, the first game they wouldn't know, but we had 3 million people sign up for the service. We got to assume.
You think they get 3 million?
I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out.
No. Okay, sorry.
You know. Okay. Well, 1 million.
No.
Okay, 500,000?
Doubt it.
I don't. I think 500,000 is probably I think 1 million is probably a real number. Anyway, well, just for the sake of conversation, 1 million people sign up for the service. I come to you. I'm like, hey, I want to buy an ad with this thing. We got 1 million people sign up for the service. You know, conservatively, we'd guess that probably half the people will be listening or watching on game day. I think that would be a fair estimate. And as a person trying to buy ads, I'd say, okay, 500,000 people are worth X. And that's the negotiation you do in any advertising. It's okay, 500,000 eyeballs is worth $1,000. It's way more than that, but whatever.
Possibly.
You know, and then
I mean, I think the one model that the networks have, most of those games are on Saturdays and they're running back to back to back on ABC, whatever.
Yeah, they trap
so
you
you
in
get a lot of
on.
bleed over where someone just finished watching the game. They're like, oh. Okay, I mean, I'm not a huge, Tennessee, Texas fan or whatever, but I'll watch the game, It's on next. I don't feel like getting up right now. I'll watch another game. So you kind of get that bleed over.
Right, but if I tuned in to watch the UT game at noon, UT doesn't care if I bleed over to somebody else.
Right. I'm saying that's where there's that added benefit of being on the network is that people that's looking for the viewership of the UT game are going to get some bleed over from the previous game, but also maybe people catching the end of it, getting ready to watch the following game.
Yeah, maybe. I get what you're saying. Anyway, moving on. News Sentinel is desperate to get me back as a subscriber. They sent me this ad, and I'm not sure I really like this ad.
looking at what my parents got. I want to say it was just like a regular weekday, and it was thin as shit.
They don't do shit. I was
like, is this the newspaper? Did they leave some stuff out? Like,
apparently they like
this is like the Farragut Shopper Press or whatever that you can get.
Yeah, apparently like on like, especially weekday papers, they'll not print the entire story. Like if it's like a I don't know, they sell like it's column inches, however that's
Right.
how they say a story is. It's however many column inches. Well, if when they're getting down to the final edit to try to squeeze it into however many pages they're doing for that day, if they just need to just dump a paragraph off the end of one, they'll just cut it off.
Where you normally see in like parentheses like C4A. And
Right.
It's like see the website for more.
Yeah, but I don't even think they do that. They just cut it off.
Yeah.
Because there's a story that the Pirate Bar was in the News Sentinel for something. Oh, the Scruffy City podcast, you fuckers. We were mentioned on there as the weirdest new bar in town or something like that, which I guess I'm not mad at that. I'll take it. All press is good press, right? Sure. And so my dad had seen the story on on his iPad version of the paper. And he sent me the link, and the link, I wasn't logged in on my phone to my News Sentinel account, and so I got the print version. And there was a picture of the bar in it, but I couldn't find the snippet in the story of it. There was it was a year in review kind of thing, and they were talking about a bunch of different places. Like the best this is it was the superlatives. That's what they called it. It was the Knoxville bar superlatives, and the weirdest new bar was us. But that whole section, the whole story part of us was cut out of the actual, because like if you're a News Sentinel subscriber and you use the digital version, there is, in the digital version you can get a PDF that is literally what was printed. Like it's literally like a picture of the newspaper that you can zoom in on and read the stories or whatever. But then there's the digital version, which it's more like a website. And the website one I found the story in, but the PDF version of it, which the print version of it just wasn't in there. The picture was printed in the paper, but the part about the picture was not.
Gotcha.
And I was like, it took me like 3 days to figure it out. But apparently that's a fairly standard practice for them. They just kind of chop ends of stories off. Anyway, the News Sentinel is they help protect our freedoms that our heroes gave everything for. I got another one that was like support local journalists and resubscribe to the paper. Like it's not they're desperate. They're just desperate for subscribers. Period. Not just me.
Right. They're just putting out this to anybody on the mailing list that was a former or current customer.
Yeah, and so it's not going to work, friends. You're not going to sell me on patriotism, you sons of bitches. I don't really. It doesn't. Their journalists. I mean, they've had a few recent stories that I was actually kind of impressed with. I can't remember which ones, but there wasn't. Like there was some like actual like, oh hey, this is actually like a local story of import that they actually bothered covering.
Yeah.
That the Compass guys didn't, and I was like, hey, I'm surprised the Compass guys didn't cover that part.
I've seen some good stories, but I don't read it. I very, very rarely ever read it. If anything, I'm just kind of like grabbing it to bring it in.
To me, the thing with what News Sentinel proves to me that is if I actually wanted this podcast to be viable and maybe make some money, we just need to shift into a UT sports podcast.
No thanks.
I agree. I don't want to talk about UT sports
cool.
at all. But like that, because that's all the News Sentinel really like. That's like that. That's all it ever was. Like it was a sports page. It's a really good sports page.
Yeah, it's what gets people up and going. These parts.
Yeah, it is, and it's unfortunate because we got a lot of shit going on. We really do. Like it's really starting to scare me a little bit. I was trying to find my Blackburn report for the week because. We talked about making a segment of the show of the Blackburn Twitter feed.
There's anything I almost sent you that was from like the Daily Show that kind of mentioned someone that had contact with her. That was kind of crazy.
Oh, that's why it goes into a different email.
Okay, cool.
Her weekly rundown. This week, she led her Senate GOP colleagues in a press conference pushing back on Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's scheme to bring a sham immigration bill to the Senate floor that would make illegal immigration legal. This is an election year political move by Biden's open border agenda to make Biden's open border agenda permanent. Yeah, whatever. Biden inflation. More than 3 years have passed since Biden took office, and Tennessee families are paying higher prices on everything, from gas to groceries, as a consequence of his failed economic policies. President Biden and his administration have made it a habit out of lying about inflation, but nearly 20% increase in prices since he took office. Hidden tax on hardworking Americans who deserve to know the truth. To set the record straight, I released a fact sheet. Ooh, let's check out her fact sheet. Read it here. Let me send this. Let me send this to the computer so you can see it too. Maybe. There it is. Ooh. Beep, 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 beep. The True Cost of Bidenflation by Marsha Blackburn. What we got here? Inflation is a top concern for Tennesseans and Americans. Under the Biden administration, inflation has hit its highest rate in 41 years, and prices across the board are up nearly 20%. Meanwhile, the administration touts that inflation is only at 3.4%. Here's why that statistic does not reflect the reality for most Americans. Any hot takes so far?
Huh?
Anything? I'm pausing if you want to interject.
I mean, I don't know if she's getting 20% from, but I'm sure she cites it somewhere.
I mean, I'm assuming, my guess is, and it's not an untrue stat, is that like from whatever comparison they're using from January of 2020 when he took office to today, I would say that's probably reasonable. I would say that's pretty close, 20%. That makes sense.
No.
I'm just saying, but
I don't know what she's talking about.
Anyway, what is
Prices
the difference
across the board.
What is the difference between inflation and core inflation? Inflation is the general increase in prices of goods and services over a given period of time. Core inflation, another key measure of inflation, removes volatile categories like food and energy. This can help provide a better indication of how prices are changing over the long term. As inflation increases, the value of the dollar decreases. Thank you, Marsha. That's a super fact. The 3.4% inflation rate announced this month reflects the percentage change in prices paid by Americans over the last 12 months. Yes. Why is Biden saying inflation is only at 3.4% when prices are higher? President Biden often cites year-over-year inflation rates to make the case that inflation has gone down, but these statistics do not reflect the dramatic change in prices since he took office. While the inflation rate is only 3% over the past year, prices are up nearly 20% across the board since Biden took office. Yeah, all right, my guess is right. Americans are feeling the impact every day. Gas prices are up 55, energy prices are up 42, food prices are up 21, rent is up 21, mortgage rates are at a 2-decade high. Less than 20%, I'm assuming that's why they didn't actually put the percentage on there. Actually, that's probably not true either, but anyway.
Gas prices up 55%.
Yeah. I mean, we're at 3 and some change.
I think 330 something a day. I think was.
I mean,
what
look, I'm not going to give I will. This is proper politics at its best. These are true facts with no context. Because when Biden took office, we were on the tail end of the pandemic. We were still half shut down. There was a lot of people. Driving was down. Commerce was down. All that stuff was down because we had shut the country down and people weren't working. People were not commuting to work. All those different things are going on. And gas prices did drop during the pandemic. That is a fact. But so if gas prices are up 55%, that means that they were $2. 55% of $2 is $1.10. It's now $3.10.
Yeah. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but I can't remember the last time gas was close to $2.
I remember we were at 2 and some change here because I remember I went and I put my Kroger card in and I had 90 cents off.
Right.
And I got to I had $1.10 off and I got to under $1. I paid like 97 cents a gallon one time.
How long ago was this?
21, 20, something like that. It was during the pandemic.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think those are true numbers. Now I don't think it's Biden's fault per se, not exclusively at least. Certainly had something to do with Trump spending trillions of dollars in relief and all that different stuff going on, and PPP loans and all the other stuff that happened during the pandemic. That's absolutely part of it. Like, I don't agree with her that this is all Biden's fault, is the moral of the story.
Okay.
But I do think those numbers are pretty accurate. Anyway, continuing. Why has inflation gone up under President Biden? Inflation was at 1.4% when President Biden took office in January 2021. Yes, it's probably also true. In 2022, inflation surged to a 41-year high at 9.1% due to Bidenomics. That is some good political messaging. Nice work, Marsha's team. Economists across the political spectrum agree that massive spending packages passed by Democrats under President Biden have caused inflation to surge. That one I will disagree with her economists that she's citing, whoever they are. Because I would think, yes, I think inflation was at a significant low when Biden took office during the pandemic, when spending was down, when we had production issues and we had all the different shit going on, and all the money that Trump had spent had been just sent out. It hadn't gotten spent and used and done what it does to the part of the inflationary part of the economy. It didn't have a chance to. It wasn't starting to blow up the balloon yet, or maybe the balloon didn't pop yet. Maybe that's a better way to put it. All the spending that Trump did with PPP and our $600 checks and all the different stuff that we had go on that Trump did before Biden took office was filling the balloon, but the balloon hadn't popped yet. The balloon popped when Biden was in office, and I think Biden added to it. Don't get me wrong. This is just so hacky partisan bullshit. It's cracking me up. Who is hurting? Inflation is costing Tennessee households an average of $1,000 more per month since Biden took office. The average American household must spend an additional $12,892 a year just to maintain the same standard of living in January 2021. I think that's probably accurate. In a recent survey, 30% of respondents said they trust. Only 30% of the respondents said they trust Biden to handle inflation. I think that's
said underlined.
Yeah, I don't know. There's some weirdness in their print here. Every couple of lines is like squeezed.
They said.
Only 30% of respondents said they trust Biden to handle inflation. What can we do to cut it? Ooh, here's what I want to hear. All right, Marsha, tell me how to fix it. First, the federal government needs to spend less money. Okay, I agree with that. She has proposed a slashing federal spending by 1%, 2%, and 5% for non-defense items. Fuck your face. Sorry, she didn't say that. I did. I propose slashing federal spending by 1%, 2%, and 5% for non-defense items to begin to restore fiscal responsibility within our government. Second, we must unleash American energy and innovation and reduce our dependence on foreign energy sources to help lower consumer costs. In a series of harmful attacks on American energy, President Biden canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, banned drilling in nearly half of Alaska's petroleum reserves, and suspended new oil and gas leases and drilling permits for U.S. land and waters. Third, deregulating certain markets to reduce regulatory burden on businesses and lower the cost of domestic products to bring down prices. Okay. Other than that first, that's the dumbest. Slashing federal spending by 1%, 2%, and 5% on non-defense. That's less than half of the total budget. She's going to so basically cut those percentages in half is really what the reality.
Yeah.
You're going to take 0.5%, which is not a small sum. Don't get me wrong. The federal budget's huge. 0.5% of the federal budget is a lot of money, but that's what she's proposing, 0.5%, because defense is half or more than the total budget. How about you cut defense spending in half? And then you cut like 20% out of the total budget. That'd be cool. How about you don't spend $100 billion in Europe and the Middle East? That'd be cool. That'd cut some fucking spending.
So in the past couple of days, do you think we're technically in a recession? As it's defined?
I would have to see the definition. I'm not to pull a bullshit AC answer on you, but I would have to. I don't know that I understand the technical definition of a recession.
As far as what I've seen, I guess is the major entity or whatever that declares something or is trusted as declaring something as a deficit is a
recession.
It's like a year over year. It's either like a
two consecutive. Okay,
because you say the quarters, two consecutive.
According to the International Monetary Fund's website, most commentators and analysts use as a practical definition of recession 2 conservative quarters of decline in countries' real inflation-adjusted gross domestic product. So I'm sorry. Ooh, I read that poorly. Most people define recession as 2 consecutive quarters of decline in the country's real gross domestic product, adjusted for inflation.
Right.
So our GDP is $1 trillion 1 year, and our GDP is $1 trillion the next year. Well, adjusted for deflation, that's a decline, right? If you have the same number year after year, when you adjust it if you adjusted for inflation, that's a decline because your second year is going to go down after adjustments for inflation. I don't know.
Assuming.
Yeah.
Assuming, I guess, how much they had to adjust, possibly.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Is if it's even numbers, if the real number is $1 trillion,
right? That would
2 years in a row.
Considered a decline.
That's a decline by this definition because when you adjust for inflation, the real number of either the real number of last year.
2 numbers have already been adjusted.
I'm not saying that have or not. I'm saying they haven't. I'm saying the real numbers. The actual number of the actual GDP number is $1 trillion in 23, and the actual GDP number is $1 trillion in 24.
Okay.
That's the real number. When you adjust for inflation, you're either going to inflate the 23 number or you're deflating the 24 number. That's how you would make the adjustment. And so therefore, if the real numbers are equal, then you're technically in recession.
I think I kind of see
if it's 2 times in a row. Because when you adjust before you adjust for inflation, you have real numbers. And then when you adjust for inflation is always a percentage growth.
See, I would think they would have already adjusted that 2023 number.
Okay, that's fine. Then
give you a number.
If they already
they've adjusted the 2024 number to reflect current inflation or whatever.
And then if that's the case, then that's not the real number. That's the inflation adjusted number. It would be $1 trillion and $975 billion.
It kind of seems like you're trying to do the adjustment like after the fact.
It doesn't matter.
Let's compare the 2 numbers and then it's
the same thing.
Let's adjust the difference.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Because you have
if you have $1 trillion in 2023 that have already been adjusted for inflation, then you have 2024 numbers that have already been adjusted for inflation. Both are at $1 trillion.
Right, and neither of those are real numbers.
Is that a decline?
That is an even
$1 million or $1 trillion, $1 trillion. Is that a decline?
That is not a decline.
Okay, that's kind of the way.
But when you preface with the word real number, not adjusted for inflation, which I did repeatedly,
right.
And if the real number is $1 trillion and $1 trillion, then when you do the adjustments, it's going to be a decline. Therefore, definitionally a recession if you do it twice, if it's twice in a row.
Okay, sure.
Because definitionally, you have to have growth to offset inflation. And if you don't have growth, you're not offsetting inflation.
Okay, sure.
It's the
same.
Anyway,
according to this, it was like 3 out of 5 people had responded like, yes, we're in a recession.
Normal people?
When you look at the numbers, we're like, no. We have not had a decline in growth.
Sure. I don't know the real numbers.
Sure.
I don't know the real numbers. And I'm sorry. We back up. So this is just asking people on the street in like a survey question, do you feel like we're in a recession?
Not do you feel. There was no feel in it.
Do you think we are in a recession?
Yes, basically, yeah.
Okay. So all right.
Is the US economy in a recession?
I guess not by definition is what you're telling me.
Right.
Because the numbers don't bear that out.
We have been in consistent growth, not decline.
Above the growth outpacing inflation.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I could get behind whomever the survey takers are that are saying that yes, we are in a recession, because it goes back to what I was talking about. Like again, I'm going to refer to that map that we don't even know if it's accurate or not. But if it takes $170,000 to live decently in the state of Tennessee, then we've got problems.
Yeah, I don't want to call. I think that figure is almost like the Goldilocks zone, basically.
The Goldilocks zone. Elaborate.
As far as I think that would be an ideal, but I don't think it was a realistic expectation.
Right, because we did talk about it. It was like that 50-30-20 budget, old school budget thing.
Right.
I mean, I think that I don't know. I get what you're saying, because that is a very idealistic
What
way
was
to
it?
do a household
250,
budget.
275? What was it again for Tennessee?
What?
Or was it
180,
upper 180s?
170.
Okay.
170, 180, maybe 190. 170 to 190, somewhere in there. I don't recall.
I remember looking at the other states weren't that far off. Everybody's like, oh, California, and so much more expensive there, which I think theirs was maybe 225. It wasn't a whole lot off from what Tennessee's was.
Tennessee was 196. California is 277.
Oh, okay.
Massachusetts was the highest with 300. New York at 279. Mississippi is the lowest at 178.
I'd like to dig more into what numbers.
Right, I'm very curious as well. I mean, hell, let's go out to fucking Hawaii. 295 ain't bad. That's right in the middle. No, that's on the high end.
Yes.
But it's Hawaii. You fucking live in paradise. It's worth it. I would like to dig more. I'd like to see that with somebody else done it and breaking it down and stuff like that. But I mean, look, that's the reality of it. It's it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with how much we should pay cops and teachers and stuff like that. I don't know. Six figures is good money, right? Making six figures a year, making $100,000+ a year, that's good money.
Right.
But it's really not. It's not. In the way they if I hadn't gotten this house when I got this house, I couldn't afford to buy this house today. And I was making half of what I was making back then.
Right.
I was making half back then when I bought the house that I'm making now. So I'm making I'm making at least twice as much money. This household is making twice as much money as it was when I bought this house, and I couldn't afford to buy this house today. That feels recessionary to me. Now, that's not a functional definition of recession by the World Economic Forum or whatever.
Outside of interest rates, how much does the government have on housing costs?
I mean,
how much control does the government has on housing costs?
Which government?
Federal government. Since that's what the finger's pointed at for as far as the economy.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is that we use things inaccurately and blame the wrong people in government to do it. I don't think a lot of this is Biden's fault per se. I don't think, but that's how we choose a president.
Well, as far as that's who we kind of point to as far as the federal government spending. It gets pointed at the person in charge.
So fiscal policy is a huge one. Fiscal policy is a huge one. Government spending is a huge one. Taxes are a huge one. On what essential services the federal government is supposed to provide and how much it costs them to do them is a huge one. How many $1 billion a year do we spend on interest payments on debt in the federal government? How many people, how many people's entire income tax would combine together just because we're paying off some interest over and over and over again?
Towards?
Whatever. I don't know. Whatever loan the federal government took. I'm just saying, I'm assuming it's probably 10, 15, 50, $100 billion a year in loan
payments of other countries buying part of our debt.
I don't know. We've fallen all over the place
I'm
trying to.
asking,
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't
I'm
understand.
looking for any kind of general idea of a loan that we might be repaying realistically. I'm just out of curiosity.
I don't know how. I think we established a couple weeks ago that I still don't understand how.
Okay, we're on an assumption that we do this. Okay.
The U.S. government borrows money from somebody to do things.
Right.
Whether they issue bonds or they do a straight loan from the bank or whatever, they're borrowing money, and at least in the budget there is a bunch of money set aside to pay not just the principal of the loan back, but the interest on the principal.
Okay.
And so, how many people's money? Okay, so anyway, to answer your initial question, the federal spending has a huge amount to do with the economics in general, but on the prices of homes in and of itself. Yeah, you're right. I think interest rates is the simple, easiest, biggest part of it. But as land management, most of that doesn't fall on the federal government. Most of the real functional governmental issues is going to be zoning, state taxes, and state laws as far as they goes into developments and stuff like that. Most of that's going to fall on your state and local.
Yeah,
I mean, I agree.
I mean, I see a handful of things that that are definite concerns as far as for people on a day-to-day basis of what they're having to purchase and spend money on. But I don't know if that many fingers can really be pointed at the federal government for grocery prices.
I think some of you can. I think there's, I think there's antitrust issues at play on certain items that the White House specifically could be doing stuff about that they're not. And Biden has been more active on it than most presidents in the last couple of years, in the last couple administrations anyway.
We're trying to deregulate government, so thought that's what was driving up costs.
Well, that's what Marcia said. Those regulations were driving up costs.
That's a general GOP, I think also a libertarian thing, that if we didn't have these regulations, companies wouldn't have to charge as much.
Okay, well, are you asking my philosophical answer? Or are you asking me to
no? As far as just
how
general.
does you ask me how the federal government has an impact on these things?
Right.
Yes, the way they regulate has an impact on these things. I apologize that I inferred that they could do, that some of the things that they do have power to do that they could do.
Yeah, it sounded like you were leaning more towards antitrust as far as regulating business more. I was then kind of countering as I thought that some of the idea was that's what was driving up the cost.
Are you asking for my solution or what the solutions are available for the government that we have? Like what could the federal government that exists now do about situations? Or are you asking me what I would do if I were the czar of the country and I could do whatever the fuck I wanted?
What the country can do as is.
Okay, I'm not just like, well, you're trying to pin me on some.
I'm not trying to pin you.
You are trying to pin me on some like, well, that's not very libertarian of you. It's like, well, I'm not advocating for my stance on how to fix this, but I'm advocating for things that are in play that can be done.
Okay, sorry. It sounded like you were... Sorry, never mind. I interrupted you.
Yes, the White House has the authority to do some antitrust stuff that could theoretically do something about some of the what the new phrase is. We talked about it last week. Greedflation.
Greedflation.
Yes, there are things that can be done about greedflation on the federal level that Biden and his White House could do something directly and quickly about that they're choosing not to or moving slowly on or whatever.
See the lawsuit, I guess the Fed's going after...
Ticketmaster?
Yep, Live Nation.
Again.
Are they the same company or is that different entities?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, what's
like
interesting...
them in 30 states. So who's the 20 that's not... It was like, no, we're cool.
I'll bet you. I'll bet you it's a bunch of Reds. I bet you Tennessee's not one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Because the thing about the lawsuit to me, I don't know about this one, but the lawsuits they've had in the past, a lot of it are artist-driven lawsuits. It's not usually the explanation and the what's the word I'm looking for right now?
Well, I would say artist-driven, probably more so because the fans have bitched enough to the artists, and the artists are like, "Hey, if I speak out, maybe I can actually do something."
No, I think it's artist-driven in that it like there's quotes on some artists that have talked about it. This was Eddie Vedder did this back in the fucking 90s. He was bitching a fit about it. He hated Ticketmaster because his thing was, it's like, I want my fans to come to a show. I want them to pay $25. All right. We do the thing to work on $25. If I go through Ticketmaster and they're only charging $25 for a ticket after fees, I'm going to get like $5. I'm going to, like, we, the band and production and everything we have to do to put the show on, are going to get like $5 a ticket.
Right.
Like, we only get 10 or 15% of the end ticket price. And so the artists aren't complaining because their fans are bitching at them. They're complaining because it's like, well, if my fans are paying $100 a fucking ticket, then I should be getting $70, $80 out of that ticket,
right,
not 20 or 30. Because if I want to get 20 or 30 bucks, because that's what it takes us to do the tour, and yes, that's, I mean, most bands, that's the only way they make money is touring. They don't make money off of album sales anymore. They haven't done that for years. So the only way they make money as a band is to sell tickets to shows. And, well, they do the math and they figure it out. They'd be like, we want to make this much on this tour. We have this many venues, this many seats. If we sell out everything we go to, if we sell 80%, they probably have some math like that. If we sell 80% of every venue that we go to and we make $20 a seat, this is how much we'll make on the whole tour. This is how much it's going to cost us in production. This is how much we'll have left over at the end. That's what we want to do. And they say, okay, well, we want $20 a seat. And then it's $107 a ticket for people to buy them. or something like that. That's what the artist-driven thing. It's like, you know, if we're only making $20, my fans shouldn't be paying $30-$40 for it. Like, you know, because like if you're doing the production, if you're a touring band, you're renting the venue, right? So you're playing Thompson. You're paying University of Tennessee however many dollars for Thompson for the night. You're paying for security to come out and work.
Food City Arena.
Food City Center. If you're going to correct me correctly. You know, you're paying for security, you're paying for X, Y, and Z, you're paying all these parts and pieces. The production team pays that. And so their complaint is, it's like, well, my fans are paying 3 times what I'm getting for a ticket, but they don't get anything for that money. They just get the function of buying the tickets. The buying of the ticket should not be 300% more expensive than producing a concert. That's the complaint from the artist side. And the fan side, for that matter. It's like, why am I paying $100 a ticket? It's ridiculous. Which it is. Like, we were going to try to go to Earth, Wind, and Fire last night.
I didn't know they were in town.
Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire played the Food City Center last night. And there were some aftermarket tickets for like $10 a piece. That was not a well attended. I don't know if that was a well attended event. I wish we should have gone. I don't know why we didn't just pull the trigger, just say fuck it. Make the kids go whether they wanted to or not. But yes, I did hear that there's another lawsuit. I don't know which one that is. I don't know the parameters of this one, but I know that's the one that they went through a couple years ago.
Is it a lawsuit? I don't think.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
government was like an antitrust thing.
Yeah. You're
as far as
correct.
it being a monopoly.
I mean, they are and they aren't. As far as the large events, they are. Nobody else really does it. They do Bonnaroo. They do.
Right, do Coachella.
Huh?
Right,
yeah, they do Coachella. Like all the major events. And the other thing that they used to do in the old lawsuit, I don't know if it's part of this one too, is they would fucking stick it to venues. Like venues would get weird little, like the amount of restrictions a venue had to have to do stuff. Like there was something, what was it? I was reading about it. You know, it was like an Orange Peel or a Midland Mines type venue. And it was basically, if you wanted to do an event that we didn't have scheduled with you, you had to pay Ticketmaster a cut.
Because you just cut their availability of something they could have booked in that time frame.
I don't know exactly what their justification was, but it's like, you know, I don't know. Again, I don't know how the relationship works if you're a venue and them or whatever, but it's like, you know, there's a date, October 7th is available, and you book something.
Right.
You book something as the venue yourself. You know, you have some wedding or something, or you want to do a local showcase and put some local kids on stage. Whatever. Ticketmaster's like, okay, that's fine, but you owe us X number of dollars or X per ticket sold or whatever it is because you didn't book it through us. Or you have to sell your tickets through us.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, this is just a local whatever. It's a $5 cash show for fucking high school bands. And they're like, yeah, that's fine, whatever, you just owe us money.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a good bit of, you know, kind of blacklisting.
Yeah,
accident.
right.
Oh, we just deleted your
or we'll just not
venue.
Right. Or we'll just not book with you anymore. And
right.
it's like,
that's what I mean by blacklisting, yeah.
Yeah, those fucking assholes. But back it up a second. Yes, I think I guess technically I don't think we're in a recession, but I think it is hard as an individual to look at the world and not feel like we are.
Right.
And so you can, and I think that's the biggest electoral issue for the president or for Biden right now. I mean, that really is. I think between Israel and Gaza, Ukraine, and the economy, but I really think like I said a couple episodes ago, I think the longer we've been doing this, the more we talk about stuff, the more I don't think anything matters except economics. That's all anybody cares about is their personal economics.
Right.
Now they stupidly place the blame where it doesn't belong. But if your personal economics are questionable or bad, or you don't feel great about what's going on right now, you're going to vote for somebody else for president. You're not going to vote for the incumbent. If you're feeling pretty good about it, you're going to leave it the way it is. And all the other factors are secondary unless those factors are top level for you. Like if you're super on the abortion train or super anti-abortion, either one. You know, unless you are a single issue voter on something that you're super, super, super passionate about that isn't economics, but I'd say that's only like 10 or 15% of the country anyway.
I think so, yeah.
And again, and of that 10 or 15%, they're going to vote for the Republican or Democrat that they always, whoever's the Republican or Democrat that's the closest on their one issue anyway. I mean, like, you know, like if you're super anti-abortion, you're never voting for a Democrat. It doesn't matter anything else that's going on. Like if you were super pro-life, I should put it there in their terms. If you were super pro-life, you were never going to vote for a Democrat. It doesn't matter because they're pro-choice. Even if they're a pro-life Democrat, you probably wouldn't vote for them because they're not as pro-life as the Republican that's running against them. That'd be an interesting play. I'd be curious. If you had a pro-choice Republican versus a pro-life Democrat, if the pro-life Republicans still vote for the Republican. I bet they did. I bet they would.
I mean, well, I read there's at least a number of Republicans that are trying to walk back some of kind of like that hard line and that kind of hard push that's been pushed by some of the GOP.
Because it's not real. Like it's a very tiny minority. It's a very tiny minority entity that made it as big of an issue as it is.
Yeah. And
they're realizing that now in all these special and midterm elections that we've had as of late is that, you know, these like suburban moms, these suburban white ladies, they aren't voting for you if you're fully anti-abortion. If you're fully pro-life, the 0 week mark, you know, point of conception stuff.
Right.
Suburban white ladies ain't voting for you. And those are the voters that you can win districts for you.
Well, I guess the other thing is contraceptives.
Yep, some of this IVF shit that's going on, contraception, birth control.
That's one thing I thought when finally when they started bringing like IVF into it, that I thought maybe there'd be a little bit of back off, but there's some that are saying like even IVF should not be allowed.
I think Marsha's on the anti-IVF trade.
Really?
I think so. Don't quote me on that, people. I don't know. I'm speculating off of a snippet I read somewhere at one time. I don't know that for a fact.
Football kicker hates it.
He does.
The
Kelsey brothers are at odds about it, apparently.
Oh, really? Jon Stewart had a really cool thing on it. Because I didn't realize, I guess there's been some backlash of Jerry Seinfeld on it, like a recent bit he did or a comment that he had made. I guess that people were trying to get his shows, or there's big backlash against something that he was mentioning. He was like, nobody should get fired over this. Now, I can't remember how far we got into the conversation last week. I think that's when I was questioning, is he a player of the team or is he hired by the NFL?
Right.
Because there's a couple articles I've seen that kind of compared it to, I guess, the backlash of Colin Kaepernick. They're like, well, you guys are bitching about, people complaining about what he says on this, but, when Colin Kaepernick, he did it in uniform.
On the field, during a game, right. at a game.
Right. He never spoke out, he just kneeled.
Right. He never said during games, I guess, why he was doing it, but he talked about it after the fact.
Well, I mean, he just never went on any vocal tirades, and that was kind of the point I was trying to make last week. Is if you're going to be a known name, and you're going to say things are going to come out, especially nowadays when it's easy to search out videos of people.
I think the Kaepernick thing was stupid too, though. I mean, I think all the backlash and craziness about the Kaepernick thing was dumb.
Right.
If he wants to, again, I think there's a little bit of a difference in that it's on the field during, you're on the clock, for lack of a better word, on the field.
Yeah.
And you're doing a thing, and okay, you're not saying the thing while you're on the field, but when you're still on the clock in the post-game press conference and you're talking about the thing, you're still on the clock.
I didn't see too many post game.
But even that, but even then, even that, I don't think he should have lost his job for it. I don't know that I would agree that he did lose his job for it. He wasn't that good a quarterback in the first place. He was okay. He was solid.
And was he a starter?
He was. I don't know that he could have. I don't know that he should have been though. I think he was. I think he was an okay quarterback. I think he's better than some quarterbacks that are in the NFL starting today, but I think he's worse than some backup quarterbacks that are in the NFL today.
I mean, bad enough to basically not get hired by anybody.
No, I don't think. He should. He should have had a contract. I don't think he shouldn't have been at least a backup somewhere.
Yeah.
Now,
I think that's what I saw in the article. Apparently, Goodell even came out a year or so later was kind of what we did was kind of overblown, and he shouldn't have lost a contract. Somebody should have picked him up.
But at the same time, there's a lot of questions in that. It's like, okay, well, he leaned into it, and kind of like, to me, the Kaepernick thing, where it got weirder over time, is that he was leaning into it. There's a weird Nike ad at the Super Bowl that year that he was in, and like,
yeah, I don't remember that.
there was a lot of like posturing stuff that was going on outside of it, and I could imagine that when you were him and you feel like you were slighted in the first place, that you kind of carry that chip a little bit. And I can imagine that if you're an owner or a GM, you don't want to deal with that chip. And it's not about whether you're good or not. It's, I don't want to deal with your, okay, well, now you feel like you deserve X or you're supposed to get Y, and I don't want to deal with that.
How do you get that inclination that you think that he would want more? I didn't see
Because he said it. He's gone out and said I'm better than half the starting quarterbacks in the league and stuff like that. And it's like, he may be right, but that is a lot of politics in the clubhouse, in the baseball phrase version of it. Like, that's a lot of politics in the locker room that you're going to have to put up with. That you may, okay, he may be better than, but is it worth me completely throwing off the chemistry of my team that I have to bring this guy in? That's got to. Does that make sense? A little bit more sense?
No, not really. I mean, I guess I'm just thinking of like what he did in protest was literally silently kneeling at the beginning of the game.
Right. No, and I agree. I fully agree. It was completely.
Like I said, I didn't see any of the after. I don't know.
I think the whole thing. I think the whole conversation at the time was completely blown out of proportion. But I guess my point is what I was trying to get to, at least, is that in that backlash, blow up craziness about it, I think he picked up a chip about how he. I don't want to say the phrase, but the best phrase being like he became a victim in the thing, which he kind of did. To be fair. He kind of became a victim of some crazy overblown response to something that wasn't that big a fucking deal in the first place. And I could see as a GM, you go, okay, he is better than my backup quarterback, and I could probably get him for a pretty cheap salary right now. He'd probably be an asset, except I have to deal with everything that goes on around that. And is the upside I see in this player worth the potential downside of what it's going to do in the locker room and the chemistry of my team and this, that, and the other? That's kind of the point I'm trying to get to.
Okay, but then compare it to the recent situation.
I think it's a valid conversation to have, because Travis apparently
you kind of see the same thing of a.
Travis apparently has said that he's not going to play for the Chiefs anymore if that kicker's still on that team. And Travis is kind of a fucking big deal.
I thought it was all like Mahomes came out and he was like, I don't know how long Mahomes has been on the team. I think he was like, I've known the guy. He's a good guy. It's like, he loves his family just like everybody else.
Yeah. But, yeah, apparently Travis Kelce is not, I don't know. I don't know if, I don't, to be fair, I saw.
Is that the one that's dating?
Taylor, yeah.
Okay.
Apparently Kelce has said that he's not going to play if he's playing. But I don't know if that's true. I saw it in a meme. I don't know if that's an actual true statement.
No. That probably would have been a bigger story with as big as he is being a Taylor's bow.
I did see a quote from Jason, Travis's brother, who's just retired and played for the Eagles. It's like, something about like, if you're a parent and your kids aren't your number one priority, then you're doing it wrong anyway, or something like that. So it wasn't in agreement with him, but he was also not like, get rid of him, tie him to a stake and burn him.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I said, like it's.
Now, John Cena talked about it. He's like, this is going to be over in a couple weeks. He was like, you have the political backlash. He's like, no, I don't think anybody should get fired. He's like, but you're going to have things that come out. This is going to be, it was blown out of proportion initially, and he's like, this is going to be over eventually.
I wish that was
like,
the
I don't know
sentiment.
why they're acting so like butthurt about this.
I wish that was. I hope he's right, and I hope that becomes the normal right. Like I really do.
I think it's in like an ever evolving or an ever not really growing, but it's an ever occurring thing. Just with so much media being out there, eventually somebody's either going to have a cell phone or a local news channel that's got a camera on you saying something. And eventually, something's going to come out.
Yeah, but I mean, the only reason it comes out and gets into the zeitgeist like this one did is because enough people start talking about it. Like, why would you and I have ever heard about it? we heard about it because there was a news story about it,
Right.
and it was a national news story about it. And it's like, why is Politico or whomever the fuck it was that is running, like, why are they running this national story? And the answer is because it's clickbaity and people.
Well, no, he was a Super Bowl winning kicker. I mean, I'd never heard the name prior, but I don't give a fuck about football. But apparently he was semi-famous as a well-known kicker, apparently.
I know, but again, it's like, but it's one of those, like, if it's one of the consequences of the internet. I'm agreeing with you on that part for sure. But it's like, you're a major news organization. Is this major news? Like, where?
It's a semi-major sports star. Sports are fucking big business. A lot of people know it and follow sports. I mean, we talk about all the time how, there's more people that could name like every single player on their, local favorite team than they can their local legislators.
I agree, but as a news organization, especially if you're a news organization, not a sports, if it didn't go, it's
how many
not.
News organizations don't have a sports section?
I don't think the New York Times has. Does the New York Times have a sports section?
Yeah,
Wall Street
pretty sure they probably do.
Wall Street Journal,
Probably not.
Politico,
Wall Street Journal, what?
HuffPost. You think like all these, even the new media,
HuffPost, really?
Huffington Post. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like some of the new media that's out there. Like most of my news podcasts that I listen to don't do sports at all, unless it's something like this that gets so big and loud. But only gets
other aspects of culture that don't get covered in your news thing.
I mean, they'll touch on a few things here and there, but usually not unless it's like a big like cultural crazy thing.
Right.
They did talk about OJ dying because that's kind of a big story, I guess, but not because of sports. Realistically, partially, I don't know.
Could argue he wouldn't have been famous without the sports.
He wouldn't. Yeah, he would not have been in the Naked Gun.
No,
movies.
he probably would have made it in the news just killing somebody, or
No.
allegedly killing somebody.
No, he wouldn't have. How many white women you think got murdered in L.A. that year?
I don't know,
I'm going to go with more than one.
but I mean, news likes to cover when white women die.
That's true, but I'm going to go with more than one. It might have been the only one that was murdered by a black man, allegedly. Covering our bases here, trying to keep the legal team happy.
I think he was found guilty civilly, just not criminally.
Yeah, but I don't know how that sits with the. I don't fucking understand that. That's a whole other subset of shit. It's wrongful death.
I think you can only sue for civil damages, basically.
It's a wrongful death suit, not a murder
You
trial.
can't go to jail for it, but I think you can sue him for monetary loss.
Right, but he didn't. But to legally defend my statement, I was alleging that he murdered her. I'm not saying that he did because he was not proven to have murdered her. He was proven to have caused her death wrongfully.
And if he didn't do it, this is the way he could have done it.
You can write a whole book about it. I mean, that could be its own news of the weird.
Buffering. Huh?
That could be its own news of the weird.
What's that?
O.J. Simpson, black dudes killing white people, whatever. That last minute of tirade.
Okay. Let's see here. We got Thai-town maddened by marauding monkeys launches plan to lock them up and send them away.
Thai-town?
Yeah.
Oh, Thailand town. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Thailand, yeah.
Thailand has marauding monkeys that they want to get rid of.
Raged by its ever-growing population of marauding wild monkeys, launched an offensive against the simian raiders on Friday using trickery and ripe tropical fruit. Got conflicts recently, convinced authorities in central Thailand they had to reduce the animals' numbers. What goes well will end up behind bars before starting a new life elsewhere. Right, is to bait cages with the animals' favorite food, then wait for hunger to get the better of their natural caution. There was early success for catchers on the street when, I guess they're macaques, falling for the ruse and ending up trapped because they had fancied a taste of rambutan fruit. Interesting. It's thought to be around 2,500 monkeys running around the town.
I'll bet you this effort fails over time because the monkeys will figure it out and get smart. The question is, are they delicious?
Couldn't tell you.
If you want to control some population, figure out a good recipe and let people kill them. That got dark. I'm sorry, everybody. Bring it back light. Not really. That's proper. But go ahead.
It's kind of an interesting one. So a billionaire rains cash on UMass graduates to a tune of $1,000 each, but says they must give away half.
That's fun.
Yeah, kind of like the idea. And just encourage them to donate it to whatever cause they find most worthy.
Yeah. Why not?
It's another way of kind of like, I don't want to say like forcing charity.
Ooh. Yeah. Forced philanthropy.
Almost.
Yeah. The other part, too.
But it's giving them a little something, but also it's like, hey, here's some extra money. I know there's times where, you've wanted to do something for an organization, but here's your chance.
I would like
Let's do that.
to...
You want to make a difference. Here's a way for you to make a difference in something that matters to you.
Yeah, I think it's a fun effort, and I'm going to leave my dark side alone. I'm just not going to go there.
Okay.
I'll leave it alone. I have a dark place. We'll
You
talk
think
about it.
there was a sinister...
No. I think there's just I'll just leave it alone.
Okay.
That's good. Good for him. That's a fun. How many students? How many dollars did he give out?
Let's see here.
It's got to be like a couple thousand grads, so like $1 million.
1,000 each.
Grand total of.
Let's see here. I don't know if it really says. He says that he has a net worth of $5.4 billion.
I mean, he's poor.
Totes. Yeah, it doesn't say total what the estimated giving out was.
No. Well, good for him. That's fun. Do it.
Yeah,
do it to it. Those are good fun things to do. All right, man. Last call. Anything we missed? Any coverage? Any exciting stories that I forgot about?
I did see the Dogecoin dog meme, whatever.
Yeah.
Apparently, it just passed.
It just passed.
Yeah, the actual dog that meme was based upon.
Random. I didn't realize there was a real dog involved in that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did.
It was based on a real dog.
Yeah, that's right. I did know that. I apologize. Well, R.I.P. Dogecoin dog. A moment of silence for our Dogecoin dog. And the giving away money to kids to have to give away money. It's a fun experiment. I'd be curious where all the money went. I'd like to hear a follow-up story on that. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check out what's going on there. Hollerboo24, October 26th. Register your Soapbox Derby soon. If you're a vendor and you want to do the street fair part of it, you got to register that soon because we're going to sell out of those for sure. Anyway, keep following us. Go to hollerboo.co or hollerboo.com to check out stuff on there. Link up with our Facebook page on that side, too. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. We got election stuff coming up. I'm going to start talking to some people when we do. So, anyway, almost here, everybody. Thanks for listening. We're having a good time. We hope you did, too. And we'll talk to y'all soon.